What's up, guys? I know, today it's Tuesday and you're expecting to hear me tell you all about the dwarves and why the dwarves should have familiars and be lucky halflings and all of that stuff, and yeah, that's super cool, but not today. It's been requested on the channel a couple times that we do some coverage of adventure paths, do some very spoilery things, and now, as we're running Doomsday Dawn here on the channel, I find myself in a situation where I have the ability to actually do that. This will also serve as sort of my longer form reflection on the playtest, where I can get more of my ideas and feelings out, where people can hear them and where we all can discuss them, as opposed to filling out a survey. But of course, surveys are important. Fill them out. Make sure you do it. It's important. We're kicking off today with the first part of Doomsday Dawn, The Lost Star. As we clear other adventure paths here at Black Dragon Gaming, we'll come back as we get done with the various parts of things, and we'll reflect on them. At the moment, I have, I'm gonna say, like, the second half of Book 2 of Rise of the Rune Lords through the first half of Book 3 under my belt. And I suppose if you guys want to hear how I feel about, like, Fort Rannick and the Clock Tower and stuff, we can definitely talk about that, but I'd prefer to hit them just like one book at a time. We've been through The Lost Star for a while now. We took a week off from In Pale Mountain Shadow, but when we finish that, I'll come back and we'll talk about that like Tuesday after. But anywho, before we get underway, this episode of, what even am I calling this? Adventure's Log. We've done things. Ugh, that's bad. This episode of It's Still a Playtest, your Pathfinder playtest content was brought to you in part by all 6 of the guys who are playtesting Doomsday Dawn with me. My favorite thing about the playtest so far has been that you 6 have had just the best synergy together. I'm still just blown away. We had no session 0, just here's a Discord, here's the character creation rules, I'll see you Friday. It's all we did, and everyone was really fleshed out, really good together, both as players and as characters, from the word go. And that just doesn't happen, especially without something like a session 0, where we all like get to know each other and stuff. And truly, like, I have you 6 to thank, not just for the 4 out of 6 of you that are patrons on the channel, but like, I'm not even gonna lie, when I had a giveaway, and through that giveaway I was, hey, come play on the channel. Gonna be super fun. No one knows each other. Haha, I definitely thought there would be some bad apples. Not a one of ya. Anyway, The Lost Star takes place in Magnemar, and the idea is a woman who ends up being a little more important, talk about that in a second, has lost an artifact because her house has been raided by goblins, and the PCs are tasked with going into the sewers, tracking down these goblins, and getting this artifact back. It's basically just one dungeon and a little roleplay out in front of it. My party finished it in 2 about 3-hour sessions, give or take. And this is basically what we're looking at the whole time. This map here. It ended up being a lot bigger than I thought it would be. There's a lot more stuff going on than what it looks like just staring at this. But I had a 6-man party. Like I said, we had a fighter, a sorcerer, a monk, a cleric, a paladin who showed up at the second session, and an alchemist. All of the characters did really well. They were put together super good, and they definitely were able to work together for a lot of value, but it was Robin's fighter that shone the most, in my opinion. And that's another point I definitely want to make. From a playtest point of view, it's very apparent to me that the heavy armor, sword and board fighter in low-level play is really, really, really powerful. With a raised shield, Robin was really hard to hit, and a lot of things in this playtest wouldn't damage over the shield's hardness anyway. And in that nature, we've made the World of Warcraft-esque tank because he can only block with his shield once, right? So if I want to get damage through as a GM, that means I need more of my strikes, more of my actions to target him. Which of course is what had to happen when they turned the corner and here's 5 or 6 goblins. Sure, I could swarm the alchemist or the sorcerer, we did that later on. But A1 had a little sewer ooze that the party could fight. A2 was supposed to have goblins up in like the north part of the place, standing around a shrine to their leader who they think is a vampire, and the PCs come in thinking is a vampire and couldn't ever figure out wasn't a vampire until the end. But instead what I wanted to do was I put the goblins in A2 just on the other side of this opening as the party would move from the sewers into this crypt through this hole in the wall that you guys see. And once they got just on the other side, there would be a surprise round, and I couldn't hit anybody. And by that same notion, the goblins were super easy to hit, and they only had like 6 hit points, so it wasn't hard for the alchemist to turn the corner and alchemist fire, blip, and then a goblin's face is exploded. Random caveat, actually, it turns out that I really enjoy role-playing Pathfinder goblins and kind of just small races in general. I had a lot of fun with it. There were a lot of laughs to be had in this part of the playtest. And if you guys haven't watched it, follow this card right up here. You can watch us. Did I point the right way? I did. Because, you know, goblins are people now. I'll just go and meet one. That's the voice I'll do. Anyway, in this part of the dungeon, that's definitely what I took away from it. Low CR creatures are really, really squishy, and fighters with shields and heavy armor. Like, this dude had focused so much on his AC that he literally came in with a club as his weapon because he had no gold to purchase a weapon, and I had to when the goblins eventually surrendered after, you know, one of them ran off up A2 over here to where the other goblins are camped to let them know that bad things are happening. Give Robin a dog slicer so he's not just bashing somebody with a tree branch. A3 and A5 contained traps. I didn't really get to see how they would pan out because the party was smart enough to avoid them. My original thought had been something along the lines of we would ambush here and then one of the goblins would run back here, cover behind. This was centipedes that wouldn't attack the goblins, so he'd shoot. I was hoping like the monk or something would chase down here and then he'd move back and the centipedes ambush, but it wasn't to be. A4 is kind of arbitrary. There was a little bit of a hint that the vampire wasn't a vampire. It was another thing that I kind of screwed up, to tell you the truth, because I made an on-the-fly decision, but that has not a whole lot to do with the playtest. It was in A6 when the party set off I guess it's a trap. Yeah, basically a trap. That I was made very aware of something that's really meta-changing from what we expect in like 3.5 Pathfinder style games that I think honestly needs to change. In A6, in this pool of water here, the party finds an idol to Lamash 2, and if a good creature touches it or they try to break it, then some quasits break out. And of course, like, what's the party gonna do when they find water that's been corrupted and here's an idol to Lamash 2, right? They're gonna break the thing. And so the quasits show up, and it was only my fighter who really had any response at level 1 to these quasits dancing all over the party, casting spells and things. Really, I've said it in some of the min-maxing videos, I'm going to say it again. I think that everything in Pathfinder 2nd Edition should have the attack of opportunity reaction. Yes, it devalues the fighter a little, but to be honest, I feel like a lot of the combat-oriented builds are going to be going into the fighter dedication anyway. And it feels like we're playing on easy mode when, again, something like a quasit can just dance around to wherever I, the GM, want to put it. Like, for example, when I decided I would attack the sorcerer and poison him, I could move past the monk and the cleric, and they had nothing to say about it until the next round when they would bash its head in. Which brings me to another point that I've noticed in the meta. Poison is super scary, disease is super scary. I definitely shut off a couple of players for a while with the Waters of Lamash 2, a pretty good Rise of the Runelords callback, as well as the Quasit's Venom, because their fort saves just couldn't deal with it. I really like this, personally. I really like that the more mundane things are as lethal as they are, to say nothing of the Dire Rat with Filth Fever. In the Pathfinder playtest, seriously, Filth Fever just outright kills you at stage, I think, 5. And that is gnarly, and the players are exposed to it in Chapter 1. Of course, like, for it to have been bad, they'd have to leave the Ashen Ossuary, they'd have to run back to Magnamar and try to, like, sleep it off or whatever. But it's there. That's definitely something I like. I enjoyed seeing that again, and I really think that my ranger, who I had originally had built over at IOPC to be a horse archer, I think I'm going to mess around with poison just a little through alchemical crafting because, again, it's just so good. Now, in the second part of the adventure, because this was basically the cutoff for day 1, my paladin came in a little late, and we introduced him here in A7, captured by the goblins, stripped of all his gear and stuff. Much like back in the rest of the dungeon, these goblins were prepared to face the party, and this trap here literally was a rocks fall, you take damage kind of thing. Again, I really felt like I could scratch no one. The only person I felt like I scratched was the paladin whose armor and greatsword I'd removed from him so I could just shank him while he's tied up. Even the bigger goblin, like, couldn't really get past the fighter. I think I might have got some damage in there, but it was after having 2 or 3 guys try to attack. And to be honest, I think that this means that the lower CR creatures need to be buffed just a little. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like mechanically because I haven't like tore the bestiary apart and been like, this is how this works and do. Haven't done that. May do it later. Regardless, it's just really hard to hit that fighter. The paladin as well once he got his armor on. That said, this might come as a relief to some of us who haven't played in the playtest as well. What I learned in A8 after someone commented on the video and let me know because I was just running with it. Because as you guys know, if you watch our live plays, no matter what it's for, natural 20s, natural 1s, always going to have an effect. Here in A8, a bunch of skeleton archers animated, shot at the fighter. Now some of them were natural 1s, and so it was really funny when I rolled that many nat 1s in a row to just have the skeletons kind of just blow up because they had 4 hit points and the encounter was arbitrary anyway. But there were a lot of rolls that were fumbles because the fighter's AC was so high, and when I got close, he just blocked the arrow with his shield. But again, that was entirely GM fiat because that's the way I play games. I think it's a little more fun, and everybody was laughing and having a good time, right? That's what's important here. But for all of you out there who might have been worried about, oh no, rules is written, I fumbled a strike, I'm in trouble. Not the case. There was a trap in A9 that I ended up setting off because I wanted to set it off. I put some extra goblins in here and I had one just kind of wander up. And there was a statue of Pharasma that would fill the corridor with sand if you hadn't fixed the fountain in A6 and anointed yourself with the waters of Pharasma, as the party obviously did because they're smart boys. I did catch the cleric with it because he was kind of dragging his butt and I had a goblin wander in from A10 and poof. But even then, it was kind of just to no avail. A10, on the other hand, was a lot of fun. The party ended up approaching it from A12, and this is where I made the first... And this is the first place where I grossly misinterpreted a thing, because the vampire who's supposed to be waiting in A10 is not a vampire. He is, in fact, a faceless stalker posing as a hobgoblin. And this guy's really strong. Actually, I was very impressed with him, but I wanted to see what the big bad evil guy of the dungeon could do to the party if my fighter and my monk and my paladin were already engaged fighting other things and somehow the boss had gotten behind the party to attack the casters. You guys can see here, Dracus the Taker, my faceless stalker, and if you want to use a faceless stalker, it's right here in book 1 of the playtest. Was creature level 3, much stronger than the like 0s and 1s the party had been fighting, and he actually posed quite a fight. Part of that reason is because he did in fact have the attack of opportunity reaction, which again I think most monsters should have. I think PC classes all should have, maybe not like the wizard, maybe not like the alchemist. No, everyone should. If you have a weapon out and you're defending yourself and somebody tries to do a thing other than block the incoming attack, you should probably get a free hit in. Like I said before, it truly feels like easy mode. Now, a faceless stalker can spend 10 minutes and reshape its appearance to take on the shape of a small or medium humanoid. Where I erred was I had him turn into a dire rat so he could get behind the party. Truthfully, had I turned into a goblin and was, oh, excuse me, got a not terrified, you're very strong, I'm going to the bathroom, we go in that corner, over there, we're very civilized, we're people now. I probably could have got away with it, and I still would have got what I wanted. But that's not like an error of the playtest, that's just I read too fast. Now, 2 things we learned as we were fighting the Faceless Stalker were how dying worked and how grapples work. Of course, we've talked about dying on the channel ever since we first figured it out from all the live plays they did during spoiler season. Once I actually got my hands on it, it was really easy to forget, and it wasn't hard for me to get behind the sorcerer and hit him with blood nourishment 3 times after we'd grabbed him in a turn and he couldn't get out. It was super mean, super powerful, and then I forgot how dying worked and we had to stop and figure it out. I won't say dying's bad, I like it. I will say that missing the coup de grace feels kind of bad, especially in a meta where hold person is weaker and we're not going to abuse it as much. But when things are dying, it's not uncommon for them to get back up. So bringing coup de grace back would be a thing I would look for in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, if for no other reason than we're not just like, okay, what's the penalties? I attack him. Blah, blah, blah. Regardless, once you figure out how dying works, it's a pretty easy learning curve. It's just a matter of figuring it out. Grappling was an entirely different story. I don't even really remember how it works now. It's a lot easier to get out of grapples. I remember that. It involves athletics checks and acrobatics checks and stuff. Both of these definitely stopped play like on the spot though, as we're all kind of digging through. Big shout out to Anthony for being my rules advisor, we'll say. Yeah, and of course we hand out hero points for that. 1 hero point per session in the playtest also has proven to be very strong, because it's not hard to maybe misplay a little bit when you don't understand exactly how the meta works and oops, a faceless stalker cheated behind you and has killed you dead. And you've got to use that hero point to cheat death, because the faceless stalker was able to bring down both the sorcerer and the alchemist before the fighter, paladin, and monk could deal with the goblins and the dire rat, get back around through the tunnel that you guys had saw into A10 to deal with this thing. That said, it was definitely still a really hard, really difficult, really felt good for like an end of dungeon encounter. I think the difficulty was just right. I think maybe the goblins, again, could have been buffed just a little, but this dude, spot on. Now, as far as the lore goes, you do definitely find the star that was lost. You also find a spooky notebook written in MacLeod. And when the woman who sent you down here to find stuff figures out you have this book, she reveals that she is actually a member of the esoteric order of the Palatine. I think I'm saying that correct. And the party gets inducted as members of the society. So these are the characters we're going to see recur a bunch in the adventure, which is super exciting. I definitely, for one, want to see how that sword and board fighter holds up as the sword and board fighter levels and things aren't just like 1d6 plus nothing. Didn't break the shield again. Whee! Just kind of wailing against the fighter futilely as he takes a club and brains people to death. Regardless, it was a lot of fun. Again, I have a wonderful group. We'll probably be through in Pale Mountain Shadow in like 2 or 3, maybe 4 tops, but that's pushing it, sessions. And then again, we'll come back, do one of these in our Tuesday video, interrupt whatever playtest content's coming through. And again, as the channel moves forward, as we're able to devote more time to like PFS scenarios, adventure paths, published one-shots, things of that nature, we'll definitely review them a lot like this. But that's all we have for today. Again, thank you guys so much, as always, for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more finger guns. The next episode of your Pathfinder playtest content. It's an episode of min-maxing for fun and profit. If you haven't heard, we're gonna play as a battle cleric. We're gonna worship Gorm. We're gonna cast Greatsword this Saturday.